Hey everybody, it's Mike Carey with the One Good Reason. We kind of have a special discussion for tonight, kind of impromptu. We're going to be talking about the origin of choice, and we're going to have a guest on with us. I believe he goes by Taylor James. We might have another profile, Taylor Matthews. Basically, he's a theist, and we're going to get his perspective on where choice comes from. So once he is added to the chat, we can go ahead and get the discussion started. Give me just a second to get that going. Appreciate your patience. Just a second. What the hell's going on? There's two people viewing. It doesn't show. Hey Heather, what's going on? For some reason I can't get Taylor in the room with me. So I'm trying to get this going. He says he wants me to tag him. Are you able to tag him? There we go. I think. There we go. Awesome. Hey, what's going on, Taylor?
See, look, everybody, he got the backwards flag, too. That's the way the flag runs.
Oh, what's that?
That's the way the flag runs.
Yeah,
the flag doesn't go the other way.
It's just inverse because of the camera. I'm using the front facing of my cell phone. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get right into it. I just wanted to ask you the question and kind of wanted to just jump right into the topic. So you're a theist, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And being a theist, you believe in, or correct me if I'm wrong, you believe in a deity that created everything, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when we say everything, that's all encompassing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the question. Did your God create choice? And if so, well, did your God create choice? And if so, did it choose to do so?
All right. So, yes, God created choice. But in the case of choice, as we defined it, he did not choose to do so.
Okay, so just want to stop there for just a quick second. So you said that your God did create the ability to choose.
Yeah.
But your God had no choice in doing that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So if and just correct me if I'm wrong at any point, I don't want to mischaracterize your argument. Does that mean that your God was forced to create choice?
No, he wasn't forced to create it, but it was a byproduct if he was going to create things. There would have to be a choice.
Okay, but so before choice existed, your deity created it, and when it did that, it didn't have a choice in doing that, right? That would be a paradox, right?
Yeah.
So when it didn't have the choice to create the very first possibility of choice, was it forced to do that? So you're saying it wasn't forced. So the difference between forcing someone to do something and them choosing to do it, do you see a problem with that?
Yes and no. It's when
Okay, go ahead.
when he created the universe, right? He
Uh,
didn't choose to do it. He did it, and he had no choice. There was to be choices came into existence as he did it. He didn't
was
have a choice in the matter.
so if you didn't have a choice, so if you don't have a choice in the matter, how
Yeah.
is it coming about? How is the action coming about if there's no choice in the matter? If you wake up and there's a dick drawing on your face after a party, and you say, I didn't choose to have this dick on my face, we would say it was forced on you, right?
Well, I only got a
Do you
couple.
agree with
I
that?
only got a little bit of that. What did
Okay,
you say?
I'm gonna say it again. If you woke up from a party that you got so blasted, you passed out, you woke up, and there's a dick drawing on your face with a Sharpie, and you're upset, and you say, I didn't want this. I didn't choose to have this dick on my face. We would say, generally speaking, people would say that that was forced on you, right? Against your will. You did not want it, correct? So do
Correct.
you see the problem when you're saying your deity created the ability to choose? That ability didn't exist, that utility, that being a free personal agent to be able to decide between two things or more, right? The choice, that did not exist, you're saying, until your God created it. So my question is, when it did that, was it being forced to do it because there was no choice involved?
Yeah. The original part, yes, he was forced. He wasn't
Okay, so wait, wait, wait,
forced.
wait, wait, wait. I just yes or no. So you said yes, your God created choice. No, it didn't choose to, and yes, it was forced. If it was forced to do it, who or what forced your God to take this action? And why do you not worship what that was that had more power to force your God to create choice?
Nothing forced. God's presence is
Whoa,
God.
whoa, whoa, whoa,
He's
wait, wait,
just
wait.
he's forced to create
Hold on,
choice.
hold on, hold on. You just said it was forced. Are you pivoting on that
Yeah,
now?
I'm agreeing with his force.
Okay, so it was forced to do it. What or who, in your opinion, forced your God to create choice?
Well, it's himself. He can't be God unless he creates choice. He can't be God unless
So
there's good and evil.
so your God forced himself.
Yes, that's all I
When you force
scripturally
when
know.
you force your when you force yourself, is that a choice? I'll say it again. When you force yourself to do something, is that a choice?
Technically, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I would say
So if
yes
your God,
in general.
do you see the problem with the logic?
Well, he didn't have foresight.
That's not, wait, come on. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about foresight or omniscience or any of that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not trying to be rude. I just want to stick to this one topic. And I know you have a lot of that you want to say, but we agreed to just talk about the choice topic, because if we go down little different rabbit holes, we can lose sight of what we're talking about. It's a very simple
Yeah, I know.
question. I said, did your God create choice? You said yes. You said it didn't choose to. And you said, yes, it was forced. And now you've said that it forced itself. So that's where we are right now, just in case anyone's joining. That your God forced itself to create choice. And I asked, when you force yourself to do something, is that a choice? With all
Well,
due respect,
yes,
I'm not trying to
I'll
be
say
rude. I
yes.
just want to be
No,
intellectually
I
honest.
understand.
I do have things to do as well. I just wanted to ask you that question.
Yeah, it's in general.
And
Like,
if you don't know the answer, that's fine too. You could just say you don't know, and we could just end the conversation.
well, from what I know scripturally, like that's all I
Is
know about God and
is
whatnot.
the origin of choice discussed in the Bible? Because
Yes.
I've read the Bible 3 times, and okay, what what passage in what version of what Bible
Well, I don't do the
discusses the
King
origin
James.
of choice? Okay, so the King James Bible, what passage in the King James Bible explains the origin of choice?
But through exegesis of a lot of different passages.
No. Hold on. What specific verse says, "Hey, this is where choice came from, and this is how it came about"? That God
Well, no, you
forced
can't read the Bible
Himself.
like that.
No. So where are you getting your? I don't even want to go down this road. You see, because if I ask you to cite to the Bible of
Limits.
how you interpreted something, I'm asking you, when you force yourself to do something, is that a choice? And you said yes, but choice hadn't been created yet. You're okay.
I'm
Basically,
agreeing with what you're saying, but I'm
okay.
saying,
But you have to understand. You have to understand. I'm a nice guy. I'm not trying to be a bully here. Okay, I'm the nicest guy.
well, I don't
I
feel
really am.
bullied.
Okay, good. And that's not my intention, because I'm only speaking loud because I want to make sure that the volume is picked up. But you have to understand, from my point of view, what you're essentially telling me is that you're going to sail a boat to an island to build the first boat. That doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, no, of course not.
How can you sail on a boat to an island to build the first boat? So what you're saying is that your God created choice. It didn't choose to, which is logically, that makes sense. And then I asked, well, would that mean, that begs the question that it was forced? Is that correct? And you agreed, and that you were being logically consistent up to that point, that yes, it was forced. And then I would say, well, that would ad infinitum, we would keep saying, well, what forced that to what forced that to? That would be my position. But you doubled down and said, well, I know what forced my God to create choice. He
Yeah,
forced himself to create choice. And I'm saying, well, when you force yourself, that's the point that we're at. I just want to stick to that. When you force yourself to do something, is that a choice?
I would. No, in general, as a man, I would say yes. If I force anything I do is a choice. But for God,
Okay, and I appreciate the honesty. So
but
do
for,
you agree that that would be a problem for the God to be making the choices before it created the ability, the function to choose?
because God's triune. He has three different departments, if you will.
But okay, he could have
There's the,
infinite departments. See, he's the omni. I'm just saying the origin of choice.
you keep referring to us as individuals and God as an individual too. No, he's three different
No.
parts.
But do you think that your God that you worship makes choices?
Well, yeah, but we're talking
I'm
about
not talking
choice
about
and
free
not,
will. I'm not
yeah,
talking
free
about free will.
will. Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't mean to keep
I'm trying to say
interrupting.
in
I don't mean
the
to keep
context of
interrupting.
choice.
I don't mean to keep interrupting. We're not talking about free will and that your God created the humans and gave them free will, and then I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the utility of choice. Your God's own ability to choose. Can it account for its own ability to choose? And you said yes, it
Yeah,
can
they can
account,
do that.
because it created its own ability to choose against its will, but it was forcing itself against its will.
Yeah. No, if I
That's
get three
that's your argument.
seconds, if I
And
get three
you think
seconds,
that's a
3 whole
logically sound
seconds,
argument.
I'll say when God creates the Godhead, when the Godhead is created, all right, the byproduct of that is choice. He's got three different parts, right? The Godhead always is, and he goes, all right, the Word, God, in the beginning, right? The Word is with God, the Word, the Spirit, all three. The byproduct of that is choice everywhere. Pandora's box. There's nothing you can do about it. It's not intentionally created, but it is created. Now we have a choice. What are we going to do? What's this? Who's going to be there? All right, I see the earth. I'm going to create the water. It's void. I'm going to create the life. Right? That's all choices.
Okay, so we're gonna back up. You said it's created, but it wasn't intended to be created.
That's correct.
So if it's forced to be, I'm gonna keep saying it, man. If it's forced to be created, what forced it? You can't. You're saying the entity being forced, right? The thing pushing the rock is the rock pushing itself. Is what you're saying. I take a stick and push a rock, I'm
Hold on a
pushing the
second.
rock. Brian Greener, man, I appreciate that comment. I think we're talking in circles.
I need some help, Pastor. Gosh, I didn't realize that I didn't turn on the phone.
Ever want to join the conversation? Let's kind of look at some of these comments here. Guys, I'm really not trying to be any type of, I'm not trying to be an asshole or trying to be rude or anything like this. I legitimately want.
No, it's all good.
That's all good.
I need more people on my show too. That's why I'm hoping you'll come on my show sometime.
I'll gladly come on your show and talk with you. This is a big question. This is a very big question. And
you've been asking for a month.
I've been asking it for years. I've just been speaking to you for the last 2 months, asking this question. But I've asked, preachers, pastors, deacons, fathers, whatever. I asked them the same question. And to me, the intellectually honest answer is I don't know.
Yeah,
this whole discussion could have been over in 30 seconds. But you've made a claim to knowledge. If you had said, no, your God didn't create choice, then I would say, well, where did choice come from? But that's not the route you took, so we're not even going to address that. You said that your God did create choice. It didn't mean to, or it didn't.
That's a better way to say it.
Right? It didn't intend on creating its own ability to choose. So it's okay. Well, your car has rims on it, right? It has a steering wheel. It has whatever. I'm assuming you have a car anyway, right? Your God has these utilities, right? It's omnipotent. It has the ability to make choices. So when I asked, how was it endowed with this ability to choose? And you said, well, that was forced on the God. Like, take that shit. It's forced on the God. I'm like, okay, well, what forced it on the God? And you're saying, oh, well, he forced it on himself. Well, forcing yourself to do something is a choice. We've agreed. So we're back to the same, beginning here. If choice was created out of thin air, the ability to choose, including your own God's ability to choose, then how could your God use that ability to create that ability?
Well, we're in the discussion of where God is eternal, but the Godhead had to have been created. Right? We can find that in the Bible through exegesis. We can't find God being created.
I'm specifically talking about choice and your God's ability to make choices.
Yes, his ability to make choices is byproduct from everything he created. Right, because he can't just sit in oblivion. He can't make a choice, to or not.
I'm not going to claim what it can or can't do. I'm asking you about your God that you believe in. For all you know, I could believe that, Barney the dinosaur is the president of the United States. I haven't made any claims about what I think. We're talking about what you think. So I said your God. So we know that your God forced itself to create choice.
Yes.
Now I see a comment here. I don't want to derail too much, but I see a comment down here where somebody said, Michael. I'm just going to say Michael. I don't want to butcher your last name, sir. I'm sorry. But Michael says that God is choice, that they're one and the same thing. Now, would you say that you are worshiping choice, the ability to choose, or you're worshiping a free personal agent, a deity that created everything?
Yeah, I'm worshiping the fullness of the Godhead. Right,
okay, so you're not worshiping just, oh, this is great, I get to make choices, and you're not worshiping your ability to choose. You're worshiping a deity, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So Michael, I'm sorry, but that's kind of not what we're discussing here. We're not on that level. We're actually talking about a separate entity that created everything out from which this began, right? So again, not to make it any more complicated, you're moving a rock with a stick, and you're saying that that same rock is pushing the stick to move itself.
Yes.
You don't see a problem with that?
No. In order for God to be God, there needs to be choices. Because God can cease being God. We know this from the scriptures. We don't know how God became God. All we know is that he was and always was. And in the
I'm not
beginning, there was
asking
the
how I'm
Word
not
and the
asking how your
Spirit.
God got. I'm not asking how your God got there or any of that. I'm not asking about the
Yeah.
existence or the birth of the God or the origin or any of that. I'm just talking about its ability to choose. How did it choose to create choice? How did it sail the boat to the island to build the first boat? That's all I'm asking.
It didn't choose. Because you see, we
Okay,
can tell
so
that from the scripture.
so it was forced, is what you said. And then I
No,
asked
it's not
what
forced. It's
forced
like
it.
a Pandora's box he opened. You
Well, if
know,
we go back on the tape, you said it was forced, and you agree with that 3 times. Are you not changing that now?
yeah, I'm just saying, it's not, it's like three people, right? It's not three people, but it's three purposes in one God. So
But
it's
what does
not
that
just
have to
like
do with
me making a
what?
choice, because if
What does
someone
that
else,
have to do? What does that have to do with the creation of the ability to choose? Out of thin air, the very first opportunity to make choices came from your God. And when I say how did that happen, you say it was forced to do it. That's logical.
yes,
You couldn't choose to create choice. That's a paradox. So you said the logical thing that it was forced. And I said, okay, good. So we agree that if such a God was to exist, it would have to be forced by something else to create the choice. So then the bigger
it's by
question is,
itself.
what is that thing? What is that thing that forced it? And then you came back to, well, that's that God forced himself, which is a choice, which contradicts you earlier. Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah, but God himself, right, had to be God of something. You get it? He wasn't God until he was God of something. He had no choice. And when he chose, right, when that manifested, it manifested into millions and trillions of choices.
But
All right?
the manifestation is what I want
Choice
to
didn't
talk
even
about. All right, I don't
exist
want to
at
talk.
that point.
So choice didn't exist.
And
How
it
did it
exploded into existence.
it exploded
Like a
into
quantum
existence?
expansion, yes. It was a quantum
Okay.
expansion that had to explode, that no other choice but to explode into a universe full of choices.
Okay. So your God didn't choose to do that, correct?
No.
It was forced.
hmm There would be no point in him even being
And
God if there wasn't these
but
choices.
what forced your God to do the rest of that stuff as far as the
It's
choice is
God, the
concerned?
purpose of God.
But what the purpose
He
of
quantum
God?
expanded.
I'm talking about choice. The origin of choice comes from your God that didn't choose to do it, and it was forced to do it. I don't know how many times I can say
hmm
it. And then you just keep saying this thing that was forced to smoke this thing forced itself to smoke this thing. But if it's forcing itself, it's choosing.
No, because we got choices in all this matter. There's no choice. There's just one thing in all of existence, and it's just contracting, and then it explodes.
But I'm not talking
There's
about the
no.
explosion. I'm not talking about all the
All there
after effects.
was
What
God.
I'm talking, that's fine. You said
And
that
there
all
was
there
no
was
choice.
all the okay. Let's go with that. I think we can go down that route, right?
There
So
was no
all there
choice.
was was a God. There wasn't a choice at the time, right? Choice didn't exist yet, right? Because everything was created by this God.
Yeah.
When it created choice, now, right? Now it created choice. You said that it didn't choose to do that because
Not one bit of intention to creating choice.
not one bit of intention to creating
Nope.
choice.
It just
So
exploded into millions
and
of
then you
choices.
and then you said you would okay, so that's fine. So all of that after is fine, but I'm talking about this part. So when that happened, we agreed that it was forced to do that.
Yes.
And I'm asking what forced it to do that since it didn't have choice at that point.
Yeah, it was itself. It
But
was
if you force
expanding.
yourself, do
It
you
was
agree that when
expanding, and it had
but
to
you
go. It's, boom, no
but
choice.
but you agree that when you force yourself to do something, that's a choice.
Well, yes, but me, I have
So that's a
choices.
contradiction to what you just said.
No, from this perspective, because we're living in a
If we're going
world
to be
of choice.
intellectually honest, that's a contradiction to what you said, sir. And I'm not trying to be rude. That's a direct
Well, no, I
conflict.
understand. It's been
And
misunderstood.
I'm glad that you do. That's the whole point of what we do at the One Good Reason, is that we ask people why they believe what they do, and if they have any good reason. We've logically mapped out the origin of choice using your model, and it gets to a point where the rock is pushing a stick to push itself. That doesn't make any sense. Either it's pushing or it's being pushed, right? We would agree on that logic.
Yes.
But we have this special pleading fallacy when we change the rock and put your God in, to where it's forcing itself, but that's not a choice for it to create choice. You understand? That's the problem that I have. That's why I'm asking the question. And I think, again, I'll say it one more time, I think the intellectually honest answer is I don't know.
Well,
Would you agree that?
I would
Would
say
you agree
anything
that?
I know that's not referred to scripturally,
Thank you.
right?
So do
But
you agree that
something it is referred to scripturally. That God always was, always is. All these choices came with the universe, right?
Would
We're not
you
saying
say
free
that?
will, but we know where that
Oh,
came from.
we're not talking about free will tonight. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah,
going to take me like
but
2 hours. That's going to
yes.
take me like 2 hours because I really get into that shit. But you would agree that you don't know the answer, correct?
To what? Anything outside of scripture and exegesis, I don't know. That's correct.
Okay, so
But
you would be in the same position as myself, being an atheist, that I don't know the origin of choice. I don't know where it came from, and we can't attribute it to your God because it's not found in the scripture, like you said. It would just be your opinion. So we would agree that we don't know.
not with that paradox, though. I'm not saying I don't know, because I do know that God, when everything came about, choice came about with it. There was no choice whether or not choice would be there.
Okay, so
You can't.
now we're back to the simultaneous birth of choice and your God, right?
Yeah,
It's a
it's not a
combo.
special pleading.
They came to. Well, I'm asking because you said your God created the choice, so that would say that your God's presence superseded choice itself. It's a problem, and it has to be addressed. The question's not going away. It's not me asking it, or it's not because of me. Me am I asking it? John Smith could ask it, or Teddy, whoever could ask it. It's the merit of the argument itself. I could die today. Someone else can ask the question. It's the same question. It's not going to go away. We get to a point where you are putting yourself in a position to say, hey, my God forced himself to create choice against his own
He's not
will.
here.
Oh, did you and Christina go on a date again?
No. I'm having a debate with Mike Perry
Oh,
on the choice.
did you file for divorce today?
No. I'm having a debate with Mike Perry on choice.
Okay.
But so would you
Yeah, I'm
agree that
vaping
we
too.
don't know? We simply can't say that we know where choice comes from.
No. Because I believe in God.
Can you
In God.
demonstrate? Okay, so if I say I believe that my vaporizer created choice, and you say you believe your God created choice, it's just a wash, right? I'm not going to be able to logically argue that this forced itself to create choice and it's been around forever. You understand that's an argument from authority fallacy. We don't do that to solve real problems.
Well, no, it's basically the dichotomy is that I believe God created choice, and most scientists believe that this quantum expansion created choice. Did it choose to?
That's the follow-up part of it. So that's why I asked you in that way. I said, did
Well,
your God create
I'm
choice?
claiming we
You
do.
happily say yes, and then I say, okay, if so, did
It's
it
like I
choose
have
to?
faith.
But okay, but is faith I see now? I don't want to get off topic too much, but I think we've kind of beat a dead horse with the choice question. We kind of got to a dead end where I think we were just about there. I think we just about agreed that we don't know and that it's just your opinion, that it's not really in the Bible about the origin of choice. So, but if you want to talk about faith, I mean, faith is not a reliable pathway to truth, right? I could have faith that I'm going to flip a quarter 100 times and get heads, and I flip the first time and it lands on tails. Right? I mean, that's not a reliable pathway to truth. What you would want, I pay you the compliment of assuming what you would want is to test, the air pressure in the room. Is it windy? How heavy is the coin? How much, inertia is being put on the coin? Gravity is 9.8 meters per second. It's going to pull on the coin. what angle am I flipping it at? All these different contributing influences on the coin. We would then be able to build a mechanism that would flawlessly flip the coin on heads every time, right? That's how we would go about doing it, by epistemology and by actually investigating it. By me just saying I have faith that it's going to do it. Now that's something very benign. If we want to do something a little bit more robust, I could say I have faith that when I cross the street, regardless if it's green or red or whatever, I won't get hit by a car, right? And so it's not a reliable pathway to truth. Would you agree? You could have what position?
Yeah, I agree to that to an extent. Right? Anything that I
Well,
can't defend via, like, if I can't defend a position without making that position false knowingly, right? That would be false. That wouldn't be faith at all. Like if I had faith every time I cross the street, I'm like, well, who's protecting me from crossing the street? Like an idiot. I'm doing that by choice. See what I mean?
But no, because if you have good reason or you have evidence, you don't need to appeal to faith. They don't lock people up for murder because we have faith that they did the crime. I would hope that you wouldn't make that judgment if you were on
No,
the jury.
I don't go that deep into faith, because that's not
Well,
faith at all.
it's either
I have various,
reliable or it's either reliable or it's not, sir.
the fear of God is beginning of all knowledge, according to the Bible. So I fear God. I fear retribution for acting like recklessly, walking across the street, having faith in reckless things. I have faith in something that you can't prove. So what's the harm, right?
Well, if you have faith that battery acid
Yeah.
consumption is good for your health, I can demonstrably show you that that's not the case by pouring it on some kind of organic material and showing you the after effects, right? And then you would say, oh, I guess my faith wasn't reliable in that situation because we tested it. And then you would discard that and you wouldn't want to drink battery acid. That's how we learn things. That's how we do things with our hands. That's how we're talking on these phones right now. But so if you're going to use faith, I mean, what position can I not take on faith? I could take a position that there was a God-making machine that made your God. And then we would just have the two faiths and then it'd be a wash.
Yeah.
So if you're going to use this unreliable,
I agree upon that.
Okay, so if you're going to use this unreliable foundation to say that's the justification to why I think it's okay that my God forced itself to create choice, and that forcing itself isn't a choice, and that's how I'm going to make it somehow a logical syllogism. I mean,
it didn't force itself to make something. It didn't force itself to make choice. It forced itself to be God. Right? And that God, right? The Pandora's box that opened with that is the universe.
Okay. So again, that's why I ask it in such a specific way, because you're kind of getting into some word salad here. If choice was created, choice had a beginning then, based on your review, and that your God created its own ability to choose against its will because it was forced.
Yeah, the Word. It created the Word. It created the Spirit of God, and the Father is all eternal.
The Word? What do you mean the Word? How is that relevant to the origin of choice?
Huh?
How is the Word relevant to the origin of choice?
The Word is all the choice. The choice, the conscious, the interaction with humans. That's the Word. Right? And the Spirit's what follows us around.
Choice could be to flush the toilet or to not. It doesn't have to be something deep with humans. Choice could be to hang up right now because I've gone through 4 circular arguments and special pleading fallacies and argument from authority fallacies. But it doesn't have to be some super deep thing. All I'm saying is the birth of choice came from your God, who forced itself to do that against its will.
Yes. It didn't have a choice. It didn't force itself. It just didn't have a choice. It had to be God of something. Right?
When you don't have a choice and you make an action, I thought we agreed. I could be wrong. I'm going to play this tape back. I'm going to play this tape back. I could be wrong, but please correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we agreed that when you make an action or perform an action with choice removed, that you're being forced.
With choice removed, yes.
So, okay, Sir,
And that's not possible for us to do
that's
anything without a choice involved. You tell
it's
me
not
right now,
possible
like
for
someone
you.
came and put a
No, no,
gun to
no.
my
So
head,
sir, yeah,
right? I have a
if you're
choice.
yeah, but no, but if you're asleep and I draw a dick on your face,
I had a choice to be where you could do that.
no, but you're not omniscient.
I
You
had a
wouldn't know
choice
that
to
I'm going to
drink at
draw a
that
penis
party. I
on your
had
face.
choices to this. I had a choice to maintain my life up until that point. I didn't jump off a building before that.
That
I
has
had
nothing to do
all
with the penis
choice.
on your face, though. Okay, so if I grab your arm, and wiggle your arm, you're moving. You're in action, right? Your arm is moving without you having any choice. If you just stood still and I moved your arm, you wouldn't have any choice. So when we're talking about choice is off the table, there's no option. You have no options, right? You have no options. You're in the grocery store. There's nothing on the shelves. And then you say, "Hey, I'm hungry. There's nothing on the shelves. And if I don't eat something by today, I'm gonna die." You
Yeah,
have
I
no
have a choice
choice.
to die.
No. If there's nothing to eat and you die, you're not choosing to die. You had no choice. You have no food. You have no sustenance. You're forced to die against your will. You wanted the food. You didn't get the food. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree with that to an
Okay,
extent, but there's always a
you keep
choice
agreeing with
involved.
me, but you keep agreeing with me, and that's good. I think that's very intelligent
Yeah,
of you. But that would be very ridiculous if you didn't agree, in my opinion. I mean, you've been agreeing with me. That's good. But we keep coming back to this part where your
yeah,
God is forcing itself, which you're calling
yeah. Our
a
God's not in
choice.
the same state as we are in its entire in its part that did all this. Right? God has three parts. One's like us exactly, one's not like us at all, and then there's one that's everything eternally. Right? There's three attributes of God: the omnipresent God, the omnipotent God, and the omniscient God, the one that knows
Well, hold
everything.
on.
And that's
You
the
don't
God
need
we're
all.
talking about.
You don't need all three of those. Omnipotent would include omniscient and omnipresent and omnibenevolent,
Yes.
and omnipotent
No.
would just include all of that. You don't need all three of those. It's superfluous. It's redundant.
The God
But
that exploded everything is he's just the omni everywhere. So he went from a little dot in space to a whole universe. All choices came with it. And the difference, I could say that's God, I'll say that's quantum expansion.
okay, you agree that you don't know because it's not based on any scripture. You're just making it up,
No, I
right?
don't agree. I don't know, but I don't disagree that I can be proven wrong. All right, there is a very
But,
good possibility I could be proven wrong at some point in my life.
but sir, I woke up as a dollar bill and flew to work today. Can you disprove me?
What?
I woke up
What
as a
about?
dollar bill. I changed back to a human, and I flew to work today. Can you disprove me? Do you see how that's a silly argument that because something hasn't been disproven, therefore we should assume it to be true
No, I don't
until
believe
we
that at all.
disprove it? Because if that was
I,
the case, someone could say you raped a child and then put you in jail, and then it's on other people to disprove it. In the meantime, you get to sit in the jail until we figure it out. That's ridiculous.
yeah, it's proving a negative.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
that'll be
don't
proving a negative.
there's no burden of proof on me to disprove
I'm
you.
not
That
saying a
that's
God
not an argument.
exists. I'm
That's
not
not an
saying a
argument.
God exists because nobody can
Okay.
prove it doesn't exist.
Okay.
I'm saying a God exists because I have faith in the words in the scripture over what I'm told by others about quantum expansions.
But I'm not
And,
I'm not
and
asking about the existence. I know I kind of derailed a little bit and we kind of got into the faith talk because we just talked about how that's not reliable with the coin and the
yeah.
crossing the street getting hit by cars and drinking battery acid. We already went down that route. I'm talking about choice. And
See, Mike Holt's kind of saying what I'm trying to say.
Mike Holt, omnipotent would
Mike
not include
Holt's,
omniscient, at least not for any future events, he says. Omnipotent, able to do all things, right? Which would include being able to know everything.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so sorry, Mike Holt, you fail. So
Well, up he said right up a little bit more. That wasn't that one. He said something about
what
like
was he talking about?
because
What's he talking about?
In the
An
beginning,
eternal
there's no
omniscient being
brain
can't
like
make
ours.
choices. Yeah, so Mike Holt hits it right on the head, right? If we're going to talk about omniscience, um, if you're going to know your future, right? You know what you're going to do ahead of time, right? If you have Pepsi and Coke or Mountain Dew or whatever it is, right? Between two options, Pepsi and Coke, we'll just go with that. And you know ahead of time that when you're presented with that opportunity, you're going to drink the Coke. And you know that you can't escape this, right? Because if you got to that position and said, well, even though I knew I was going to drink the Coke, I still have the option, I'm going to drink Pepsi, then you really didn't know your future. So it's kind of you have to do it. You have to do what's in your foresight. Now, the only way, you could get out of this is that you could say, well, God could just change his mind. He could just change his future. But then in that case, God would have to know that he was going to change what he knew he would know before he knew he would know it, which is ridiculous. I mean, I can say it again.
But God knew all the possible outcomes of everything to the end, and still knows all the possible outcomes. I agree with
There's
that.
there's a lot of no's in there, so I'm going to say it again, okay? If
I'd agree that
the
everything
only
has to
way
be
God
known
can,
for something.
the only way you're in omniscient, if that was one of the attributes of this super omni whatever, the only way that would escape being forced to always drink the Coke that it knows it's going to, and it can never change its own future, because then it would have to admit it didn't know its own future, right? If it changed it and said, no, actually, I'm going to drink Pepsi, then it would have foreseen that it's going to drink Pepsi. So we're back to the same situation. Coke or Pepsi, it's going to drink one. It knows it can't escape that, right? Which doesn't help it being omnipotent, by the way. But anyway, the only way it can escape that is if it were to change its future. But in order for it to do that, it would have to know that it was going to change what it knew it would know before it knew it would know it.
It's not that impossible. A computer can do that.
A computer, okay, you're saying a computer can change what it's going to know
Hmm.
before it knows it would know it.
Yeah, everything you can possibly do on your computer, it knows.
But with intent, how would it know to change this thing it needs to if it doesn't know it needs to change that thing?
I got confused there.
That's very fucking confusing. That's my problem with the omniscience. You can play this video over again. I've said it twice. It's kind of a tongue twister, but I said it twice.
It's the same thing as with the omniscience. Like it gives you the will. All right, like you could live today. You could end your life right now. All right, he knows every step of what. All right, every single possible scenario that you can jump off the building. You could jump in the water and drown yourself. He knows everything you could possibly do, and he'll know it as you're going to do it,
We're not
whether it's going
talking
to
about
happen or
humans.
not.
We're not talking about humans. We're talking about its own future.
Yes, he can
What
make
it's going
every
to do.
calculation. Every
It's
single
going to make the
calculation can be
earth.
made.
Look, it's going to make the earth. It's going to make humans. It has to fulfill those things. It can't change its mind.
What do you mean?
It,
Yeah, no,
listen,
it couldn't change his mind in that aspect because it was God.
right. So listen.
If
So
it didn't do any of that, we wouldn't be talking right now.
if it knows, it's going to create humans in, let's just make up a number. Okay, cool. It's gonna create humans in 100 more days, 100 more years, we'll call it, or whatever, some kind of time reference. 99 years go by. It's one day before the big day where it's going to create humans. It can change its mind. If it says, you know what, I'm going to create Rumpelstiltskin, or I'm going to create some goblins instead of humans, or whatever, then way back 100 years ago, follow along with the scenario here, 100 years ago, from that point, it didn't know its own future. Otherwise, it would have said, I'm going to want to create humans, but then I'm actually going to create goblins. It would have to have known it was going to do the outcome at that point. So when it gets to, it has to fulfill what it knows it's going to do. So it can't escape this. So my whole argument was the only way it could get out of this is to change what its own future, but it would have to know it was going to change what it knew it would know before it knew it would know it.
Yeah, I understand that part.
Okay, so
But
it's a problem. But I didn't even want to bring that up. Mike Paul brought it up. I was just keeping the cards close to the chest. I don't want to go off into all these different directions. It kind of ended up being that. I just wanted to talk about choice. But yeah, that would kind of shit right on the option of choice because it's omniscient. That it wouldn't have a choice. It would have to fulfill some destiny. But I don't want to go down that route. I could.
That's the whole point.
We're gonna take that off the table. What I'm asking is, how is it forcing itself to do something it doesn't want to do?
But how do you know that it doesn't want to do it? It wants to be God. It's got to have things to be
Or
God
if
up.
it didn't choose to create choice, then it's doing something. It's being forced to do something. That's where it comes. It keeps coming back down to the same thing. It's forcing itself to do something it didn't choose to do.
And why is this such a
Well, I'm
big
asking
deal?
My question was, what is forcing your God to do this? Your answer was
Yeah, the God is itself. It's expanding. It's expanding.
Against
And like
its
he
will.
said, when we think of omniscience,
it's not choosing to expand, right? It's not choosing to create the choice. It's forced.
it doesn't have that concept like we do of choice. You see, it's omniscient, so everything has to be done. It already knows it.
Would your God use logic?
He doesn't need logic. He already has it all. We need logic to help us. Like, should I do this? Should I do that? God doesn't do that. He doesn't need that. He already knows everything.
So, do you think logic is good?
What?
Or did you just argue against logic for no reason?
Huh?
Do you think logic is useful and good? Do you look around you, your room and the computer? These are all products of logic. No. Reason is reliable, and continuous results derived from reason and logic. But I'm asking you, do you think that logic and reason are good, demonstrably good tools to use?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that something that's reliable and logical and works, right? The Bible is written and we read left to right, and we've created, this using logic, we've created language and these types of things. Wasn't logic, in your view, created by your God?
Yeah, logic was created.
Okay.
Correct. Logic created for us who need it.
Your God thought logic was good. Correct?
Yes, he saw it was good when he created it.
And, it created the earth, right? With water and the different animals and the different habitats logically, correct? Or is it illogical the way that everything was created?
In some cases, yeah. But logic is only...
It's either logical or it's illogical.
Yes, if you from our perspective, yes, everything is created logically.
No.
And that's the purpose of it.
When your God made everything, right? You breathing air and having 2 feet and, everything about you, was there a plan on how things were going to go, or was it just whatever? And he didn't give a fuck about the details, he or she or it or whatever. Did it care about the details or did it not? Because if it did, that would be logic, sir. All right, guys. I guess we lost connection, or maybe he left. I don't know. But Mike Carey, One Good Reason, signing off, guys. I tried, man. I mean, fuck. All right, take it easy.